I secretly loved him for 10 years. Never thought that even having his child was a mistake. He pushed me onto the operating table himself, saying, "Anyone in this world can have my baby, except you." Jason Smith had just come from the company. There were many things that needed to be handled there, but because of Isabel Lopez, he had temporarily set them aside. As he reached the door of the hospital room, a nurse came running toward him, shouting that there was no breath. As soon as Jason Smith heard this, he immediately ran over, grabbing the nurse and shaking her, asking who wasn't breathing. The nurse said that Miss Isabel had taken sleeping pills and committed suicide. There was no breath left, and she was going to call the doctor. Jason Smith pushed the nurse's hand away and ran toward the hospital room, calling Isabel Lopez's name. He pulled Isabel Lopez up from the bed, but she was like a lifeless rag doll, unmoving no matter how he tried. A chill ran up his back as panic gripped him. He demanded to know what Isabel Lopez had done. He'd only been away for a short time. The maid had said she ate something, seemed calm, and looked fine. How could everything change so quickly? He couldn't accept it. The doctor arrived, hesitantly, asking Jason Smith to step aside so they could examine the patient. Jason Smith told them to use any means necessary to save her, then turned to Isabel Lopez, telling her that she couldn't die. He said that as long as Isabel Lopez stayed alive, she could keep the child, and he would allow her to give birth. The bed was pushed away from him, the doctor and nurse walking quickly. Jason Smith stood still for a moment, before immediately following them. Outside the operating room again, on the same day, Isabel Lopez entered the operating room twice, and Jason Smith still stood outside waiting. After Isabel Lopez came out of the operating room earlier, he returned to his office and kept thinking about it, even racking his brain. He couldn't focus on his work. All the text and numbers he saw were Isabel Lopez's face, and all he could hear were the words she had said to him before. She said this was his child. How could he not understand her? Her meaning was clear. How could he be so heartless to reject his own child? But no matter how much he tried, he couldn't get past that mental barrier. That child, just like he told Isabel Lopez, anyone could give him Jason Smith, a child except for her. Only she could not. Behind his father's back, he was with her, keeping her trapped by his side. He hadn't used every means to retaliate and drive both her and her mother to their deaths. That was already a grave sin. Now, another child had come. Back in the memorial hall, he had only spoken lightly, but now that it was really happening, he found himself at a loss. There were moments when he wondered if he was overthinking it. After all, this was Smith family's flesh and blood. Maybe his father would allow the child's existence, considering it was a descendant of the Tang family. He had already begun to compromise, starting to think about it. Coming to the hospital was one reason work wasn't progressing, and he wanted to see her. The other reason was to ask the doctor what would happen if the surgery was delayed, and if it wouldn't cause much harm. He would need more time to think about it. But why did she have to do this? Why couldn't she wait for him to come and break through the mental barrier inside of him? Jason Smith felt like there was a blow dryer inside his head running at full power, buzzing loudly. He felt like he was about to break down. When she was brought in, the nurse had said she wasn't breathing. If anything happened to her, how would he continue in this incomplete life, with no family and no one he loved? Even if they were to torment each other, it would still require both of them to be alive in this world. If she really turned to ashes, leaving him alone, what would he do? No, Isabel Lopez, Jingyi, really. As long as you can come out of this alive, we'll keep the child. We'll have it. I will try to forget the things from before. I will be good to you and the child, as long as you can come out of this. I don't want to live such a tiring life anymore. I'll slowly let go of all the past grudges and conflicts. I will take you, and together we will go to my father's tombstone to ask for his forgiveness, to beg him to forget the past and allow us to be together. From the moment I accepted you in my heart, from the moment we first got together, I've always wanted to spend my whole life with you. All these years, so many women surrounded me, but none could enter my proud heart. Only you, step by step, tirelessly, came to warm me and get closer to me. You have almost become an irreplaceable part of my life. So, all these years, I kept you by my side, even though I knew it would be an irreversible disaster. Even though I knew that what awaited us were more emotional torments and trials. But I still don't want to let go. I can't do it. I can't let you go. Thinking like this, Soon, someone opened the door and came out. Jason Smith immediately rushed over and asked the nurse how things were going. The nurse, while speaking, handed him the already prepared critical condition notice and said that Miss Isabel's condition wasn't good. They could only do their best and asked him to make a decision quickly. In order to save Miss Isabel, they could only first remove the child from her womb. Only by getting rid of the child could her survival rate be slightly higher. Jason Smith grabbed her arm and said, "You can't even solve this? What kind of useless doctors are you? Take it away. I will not sign this agreement." The nurse said now was not the time to throw a tantrum. Lives were at stake and she hoped he would make a decision quickly. If delayed, Miss Isabel's life would become even more dangerous. Jason Smith said, "Both the adult and the child must be saved." At this moment, removing the child was like a thorn in Isabel Lopez's heart. If the child was really taken away, how could she possibly want to live? No, he couldn't do it. He really couldn't. The nurse also felt a bit awkward, but now the situation was urgent, and she could only try her best to help him understand. She hoped he could understand their work. Every life was precious to them as doctors, and they didn't want anything bad to happen to their patients. They also hoped that every patient treated by them would eventually walk out of here safely. "Mr. Jason, the situation is urgent. Please make a decision quickly." Perhaps it was these words that moved Jason Smith. He then shakily picked up the pen the nurse handed him and finally signed his name. The signature was crooked, completely different from the strong, bold handwriting he usually had. "We have to save her," he murmured to the nurse before she went in. It was a voice from the heart. Then, the door to the operating room opened and closed again. After signing, Jason Smith felt as if all his energy had been drained. He staggered back several steps and sat on the bench outside the operating room. He looked completely drained, as if he had been waiting for the answer all day. If he had made the decision earlier, this situation would not have happened. She would be fine by now. It was all his fault. It was all his fault. Why did he hold on so much? Why did he keep insisting? If he had just let go earlier. Looking at the red light above the operating room, he felt like something heavy was pressing on his chest, making it hard to breathe. He rested his hands on his chin, staring at the door of the operating room, unwilling to close his eyes. He was afraid that if he even blinked, Isabel Lopez would leave him forever. About an hour later, the door to the operating room finally opened. "Doctor, how is she now?" the doctor said while removing his mask. "Miss Isabel is no longer in critical condition, but we'll need to observe her for 48 hours to understand her exact condition. If she wakes up within 48 hours, she'll be fine. What if she doesn't wake up?" Jason Smith caught the key point in his words and quickly asked, "If she doesn't wake up in 48 hours, what will the situation be?" "Well, Mr. Jason, to be honest, if she doesn't wake up, it could be problematic." "She might remain in a vegetative state permanently, or she might never wake up." "No," the doctor hadn't finished speaking, but Jason Smith immediately interrupted him, saying, "This must not happen. Doctor, I don't care what methods you use, just make sure she survives. Whatever you need, if it's something I, Jason Smith, can provide, I will fulfill it all. I'll give everything I have, as long as I can keep Isabel Lopez alive. Mr. Jason, just wait for the news. Everything is up to fate. As doctors, we can only do our best. Ultimately, it depends on the patient's condition. However, during this time, you should try to stimulate her, to give the patient a desire to live. This can help her regain consciousness. Stimulate her, for example, by mentioning things that she used to care about, or things she always wanted to achieve but couldn't due to her circumstances. If you bring these things up to her, repeatedly, and it stimulates her, you can try anything. There have been medical miracles caused by stimulation. Some patients in a vegetative state woke up this way." "All right," the doctor finished speaking and left. Jason Smith followed the bed that was being pushed out and took Isabel Lopez to the hospital room. She now had an oxygen mask on her face. Her face was already small, and with the mask on, it looked even smaller, but it couldn't hide the pallor on her face. There was no color at all, and it pained Jason Smith to see it. His heart trembled fiercely, and he instinctively reached out to touch her face. "Mr. Jason, if anything happens to the patient, please contact us immediately." The nurse finished checking all the equipment and immediately said to Jason Smith, "Okay." At this moment, he didn't care about anything anyone else said. His mind and eyes were solely on Isabel Lopez. Outside the door, Latina Mara looked at this scene, hands pressed against the wall. The coldness of the hospital wall felt like the state of her heart at this moment. She had worked so hard to get Jason Smith to agree to marry her, but now, seeing how Jason Smith was looking at Isabel Lopez, she felt like she was still an outsider. She was really scared, because Isabel Lopez had been hospitalized and ended up like this. Their wedding would be postponed again. She didn't know when she would be able to bring it up again. If she brought it up, would he think she was being unreasonable? But if she didn't bring it up, her heart was so conflicted that she almost reached for the door handle. The door was already slightly ajar. She quickly snapped back to reality, silently closing the door again, forcing herself not to act impulsively. After a brief pause, she wiped away the tear at the corner of her eye and left. Inside the room, Jason Smith's emotions were also collapsing. As things quieted down, he felt even more terrified. He thought to himself, if she isn't saved, if she stays in a vegetative state, then what meaning does my life even have?